act to follow a little bit, maybe. But to talk for a few minutes, again, not only about what we read from the Torah this morning, Parshat Chanan, but a little bit about this liturgical cycle that we're in right now, this being Shabbos Nachamu. Rabbi Zaslow, what's your sense of that and how the tradition works that?
Oh, this Shabbat is called Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of maybe being comforted or doing the comforting. And it comes to alert us that we're 7 Shabbatot from the high holidays, which is maybe we should be comforted in that we still have lots of time to prepare. I was really struck in the Haftarah by like what kind of comfort the words seem to be implying.
Namely,
and I brought it up because I think that it's not a. Sometimes when we try to comfort someone, we maybe put a hand on their shoulder and we say, like, I'm here with you, or it will be okay, or, I see you, I hear you. And I don't think that any of those are the modalities of comfort that we see in the Haftarah. The comfort that I notice in our Haftarah is about the difference between people and God, and that almost bizarrely that our lives are finite, where God is infinite, that our lives are small and limited, and that our time is very precious and will not go on forever, in contrast to God, who was and is and will be. I think that the kind of comfort that it's trying to give us is that I'm like just going through this thought now, but that our mistakes are also small and finite, and that it's possible for us to like encounter our mistakes, challenge our mistakes, do teshuvah, do repentance from our mistakes. Like nothing is so big, because really like God is the thing that is big. So the comfort is in that, like, you're just a little fleck of rice in a great big football field of life, and that you're not that great or grand.
Thank you.
You're just an assistant rabbi in a. Well, what did you see? How did you see it as being comforting?
No, I think there's something to that, what you're saying. And if you were following along, as Aaron again so beautifully chanted this morning's Haftarah, there were a series of passages that may have sounded familiar to you, particularly if you have your Chumash still, or if not, I'll read them to you at the top of 1034. And it talks about all its goodness like flowers of the field. Grass withers, flowers fade. Man is but grass. Grass withers, flowers fade. That's all Maksar imagery.
That's Unatana Tokaf.
And it's in the Unatana Tokaf. Other places also in the Maksar. So that sense, I think what the Unatana Tokaf tries to do with that, after presenting us with this sort of severe view of our mortality and acknowledging it through these kind of images taken from Isaiah's prophecy, and then the Unatana Tokaf says, but in some mysterious, magical, mystical way, we are able to link our destiny with God, and God is eternal, and God is eternal. And that's sort of that last little snippet of the Unatana Tokaf. And maybe there's comfort in that sense of being linked to something that will always be there.
And so maybe that's throughout this entire Haftarah also, that we as the Jewish people are linked to God who created the world, God who every day renews creation, God that is infinite and majestic and in awe. And that's part of our chelek, that's part of our lives as Jews, is being able to recognize that and to have our hearts tied to that.
For sure. I mean, I think that's also part of the power of ritual. You know, when you come to services, there's a sense this is how it's been, this is how it will be, this is what we do. It's always done. It's done whether I'm here, whether I'm not here. It will be done when I'm not here at all.
You don't know what I did while you were away.
Oh, no, I watched the. We'll talk about that later. But I think there's that, you know, but that's, people feel comforted when they come to shul. What's comforting about being in shul? You know, I mean, obviously community's comforting, but there's a comfort, I think, to the sense that this is always here. You know, it's always here. It's always part of this sort of community, this sense of connection, this eternal covenant, and that in and of itself feels comfort, and to be able to connect to it, to be able to engage in it. What about the Torah portion this morning? Any thoughts about the Et Chana?
I know we I was wondering a totally different thing.
Okay. I'm waiting.
Yes. Well, I think like in coming to Shabbat Nachamu, and we're supposed to, or the tradition is inviting us to prepare for the high holidays.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, I know you didn't prep, we didn't prep this ahead of time, but like, are there certain things that you do in order to prepare from this moment onward? Like,
Well,
how do you get ready for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Simchat Torah?
Yeah, I do actually. I mean, to me, the whole Haftarah cycle, starting, you know, with the Tlata de Poranuta, the three of rebuke, and then these seven of comfort, the Shivata de Nechemata. To me, that's really the beginning of the High Holy Day season. It's a series of these 10 Haftarot that we've talked about before. And so I begin thinking about the holidays more seriously, and not just the holidays, but about me and my life and what's going on and all those kinds of things. It's tough. To me, that's the kind of turning of the page of the calendar, and it's marked by the liturgy. And it really is marked by the liturgy. And then there are things that I actually do. You know, I mean, it's a whole long geschichte, which we don't need, but there's a notebook I keep, and I start jotting notes down, and I have a folder. I mean, all that kind of stuff too. But that starts right around
Those
this
are the
time.
fascinating details that we're
Yeah.
to learn from our elders and. I'm sorry, Rabbi. It's so good to have you back.
So let's
We could.
talk the Sedra this morning.
The Sedra.
Yeah. Anything particular strike you?
Yeah, I spoke about this briefly in our Parsha class this morning. There's a section of our Torah reading that says, and I'll just read it in English, that if you search for the Lord your God, you will find God. But you must seek God with all of your heart and with all of your soul. And there's a commentator from the late 1800s, and who was it? It was the Maor V'Shamesh, late 1800s. And he looks at this line like, if you search for God, you will find God. And he says something that is very not clear from that one sentence. He teaches that this sentence is really about praying in community, or very broadly, like showing up in our community. He writes in, I do like this, he did not type, he wrote in his work that sometimes it's like annoying to be in community. And he says, I know that sometimes it feels as if the prayers are going on for too long, and sometimes it feels like the prayers are too short. So sometimes you feel like your community is moving too quickly for you, and sometimes you feel like they're moving too slow. And he said, I know sometimes you want to stay home and not come in together because you're frustrated by that act of being in community. He said, if we look at this verse 29 in chapter 4 of Deuteronomy, and it says that we need to seek God together. The word to seek is in a plural form. And the word you will find is in the singular. He says, but when you show up and you're part of a prayerful community or a Torah community, and that enables you as an individual to find your own understanding of God, your own understanding of Torah, your own understanding of Judaism. So it's like he's like kind of yelling at his community, even though you don't all get along on every single thing. Show up together.
Hard to imagine.
I know. The Jews in the 1800s, they all
got along.
No. And I love that, because I think it's also fitting for the high holidays. Like, there's this pull within our tradition that says, come back together. Come join together, and we're going to seek God together, and as individuals, we're going to find whatever it is that we need from the divine, from Judaism, from the tradition.
That's lovely, And it's amazing to me always, actually, every year how, as you get into this cycle and start sort of looking towards the fall holiday season, that there are these little snippets of text from the Torah, from the Haftarot that we read, and it really kind of brings into mind the sense that the holidays are coming. And then the Machzor really does so beautifully take these things and weave them into that special liturgy that we chant on the Yamim Noraim, on the High Holy Days. A couple things caught my attention this morning. One was that there are a number of passages where it talks about keeping something on your mind. That's the translation we have in this Chumash, which is the JPS translation. So it says, keep something on your mind, usually like Torah related, keep it on your mind. But if you look at the Hebrew there, the word actually is lave.
Because heart and mind.
Which would mean keep it on your heart. You know, and the reason is, as Rabbi Zaslow says, because there's a sense that modern scholars have today that in the ancient world they they believed that thought was processed in the heart. So when they want to talk about thought process, they talk about heart. But it just strikes me today, you know, that the use of the word mind, at least in the English, sort of espouses this kind of rational, intellectual engagement with religious life.
When really...
But maybe it's more important to think about how we engage with our hearts religiously. And then the last thing is just, it's so striking. I mean, Ben and I were talking about this a little bit before, and Ben's not a huge fan of the book of Deuteronomy. I am. I think it's... But just the sort of insight you get into where Moses is in his life. You know, when you read some of the things that he's saying, some of the things he's reflecting about, and he is so clearly in this moment where he's looking back to the central, this parsha, he's looking back to the central experience of his life, which was standing at Sinai and communing with God and understanding, beginning to understand what that covenant would mean and what the Torah would look like. And he's looking back on that. He's trying to understand it. You know, 40 years later, he still doesn't fully understand, I think, what that experience was all about, what happened to him. He's trying to unpack that and to figure that out. And yet he's still living it every single day and trying to teach it to the people. And so here in this parsha, we have that second 10 commandments that come up. It's just so interesting to me to watch Moses in this last stage and what he's trying to leave and what he's trying to take in a way with him. Yeah. So folks, as always, we appreciate you indulging us in a little bit of Torah talk. Hope you enjoy. Rabbi Zaslow, on Yom Kippur, you can atone for calling me old in front of the congregation.
You know, I'm 38 now. I've aged.
Do you mind if I add one thought
Please,
to that?
Cantor.
In my Wednesday drash, Wednesday morning, I talked about this opening of this Haftorah. The first two words, Nachamu, Ami. The word Nachamu is in plural.
Mm-hmm.
So comfort my people, says God. What does that mean? Does that mean somebody's going to comfort the Jews? What it means in this sense, if you look at it this way, God is saying, comfort my people. God is saying to all of us, Nakamu, Nakamu, Ami. Comfort my people. comfort each other. Comfort your friends, comfort your family, comfort people you don't even know. And when you give comfort, you are obeying God's commandment to comfort others.
May we all be zoched to live up to that. May we all merit to live up to that, to providing each other with comfort and finding it when we need it.